funny story. The place I was working at, people would say, "Oh, you're working with Ken. Were you able to shake his hand?" And I said, "Yeah, about 55 times."
I was in one as a nurse. I was very excited. I watched on TV and they cut my head off. You could only see my hands. Ken Watanabe or Nicolas Cage? Welcome to another episode of Eyes on Japan, and today's guest is Mr. Charles Glover. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, in our previous episode, we had Liena Yonekura, who is Narahashi Yoko's daughter.
Right.
And she started off as an actress, but is now mostly working behind the scenes as a director and acting coach.
Right.
So she gave us some interesting insight into the Japanese entertainment industry. So having someone here today who works mostly in front of the camera is very exciting.
I love to talk, so
Perfect.
hard to get me to stop sometimes, so sure.
No worries. I'm sure you have a lot of fun stories to tell.
Yeah, most of them are fun, Most of them are fun, yeah.
But you have a very impressive record. I looked at your IMDb. You worked on Detective Conan, and you did One Cut of the Dead, which is, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
Yeah. I felt, to be honest with you, I felt very fortunate. I was in a spin-off. The original was this huge success.
So huge.
Yeah. That and the group that made that was a lot of fun. And interesting story is, for your viewers and listeners, what it is it's a movie within a movie, of a horror film, of a zombie film. And they shoot the thing as with one cut, right?
Yeah.
And it really is one cut. And the second one, it was the same thing. It was one cut. And I talked to somebody that was saying, well, it's not really one cut, because there's some famous Hollywood directors that, like Birdman, I think, and Resurrection, and some other things that are in 1917. Where it's all looks like all one cut, right?
Right.
But they digitally stitch things together. But ours was one cut. It really was one cut. I know for a fact it was.
That is so impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is it's live.
Yeah.
Because a lot of movies, they'll do like seconds. One little take, one little take, one little take. This was, I think ours was 17 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's like, it's pretty much like, I guess, performing on stage, but
yeah,
you have cameras around you.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking, is it's very much live.
Yeah.
It's like being on stage where if something happens, and something did happen with each time we took it, we just had to keep going.
So like if someone did make a mistake, did you just had to keep going, or you couldn't start from the beginning?
No, you can't stop. You can't stop.
Oh
no.
my gosh. So are there like some mistakes where
Yeah. There was one where in ours, I think they did a Cheers, and I literally broke a glass.
Whoa.
And they just kept going, and the actors that were doing it, they were great. They just rolled with it. And they were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" But we had, when we did the behind the scenes part, which was done the standard way.
Yeah.
We had to integrate that into the stuff we did later. Yeah.
That is so interesting.
And the tiny spoiler alert: at the end of ours, there's this big blood bath where there's fake blood everywhere, and the blood machine didn't work.
Oh no!
And it was at the very end, and it was the best take. We did 3 takes in one day, because it took so long to reset. The heroine had to go literally to a Sento, a public bath, and wash off and get ready. So we could only do 3, and it was the third one. It was the best one until we got to the very end, and the blood machine didn't work. So they digitally added.
Oh, okay.
Blood, but,
that's such a shame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was fun. But you just knew. And I had to put in a zombie contact. Ooh. And I don't wear contacts, so I had to kind of learn how to do that.
Yeah.
But I literally had, what was it? I think it was about 40 seconds to get it.
You only had 40 seconds to put in the contact? Oh my goodness.
And for someone who's not used to putting contacts, it was...
That is a bit stressful.
Yeah. The pressure was on for sure.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And I think it kind of added to it, added to the energy, because that's something about shooting stuff on camera is, it's like hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait and wait and wait and wait. Okay, action, and
Right.
your energy has to be up and
Yeah, you have to be on it the moment.
yeah, exactly.
Action.
But we were on it the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, and the viewers, they can feel the excitement even though they're not there.
I hope so. Yeah.
You can still feel it. From
Yeah,
the screen,
I hope so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, before we talk a bit more about your acting career, I'd like the viewers and listeners to get to know you a bit more.
Sure.
So, the typical question every foreigner gets
Sure.
is, why did you come to
Why
Japan?
did I come to Japan? And how long have I been here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I studied acting in school, in college, and then graduate school. And to be honest with you, I got sick of it, and I stopped it for a while. And I went into something called the Peace Corps, if you know what that is. It's it's a volunteer service, and started by John Kennedy. Actually, President Kennedy started it. Anyway, I was on a little island in the Pacific, and it was a life changer. It was the best thing I've done. And interesting, all these acting things that I had learned, and they all kind of made sense, and I grew up, basically. And it really opened my eyes to the world. I was lucky enough to have been to Europe in college, but it was like, wow, the world is a really exotic place. So when I finished my 2-year, I made it. Not everybody did in our group, but I made it. And when I was done, I wasn't ready to go back to the States. I'm originally from the U.S. And I had heard you could get a job in Japan. So I came to Japan in the late 80s and got a job pretty quick because I had experience and I had training. So I taught English, big surprise. and I progressed there. I ended up working at a university, and then I got into radio, and I had worked in radio when I was in high school and in college a little bit. So I knew that world. It had changed a bit, but I did that for a long time, and I enjoyed that, and that's what brought me to Tokyo. And then I had heard of an offer for a recurring drama on TV, and I went, well, I know how to do that. And I'd done a tiny bit, and then I went to this audition, and people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, no, I know how to do this. Because I didn't talk about it much.
Yeah.
I didn't tell people. And so I ended up getting back into acting and never looked back, actually.
Recently, you worked on Prisoners of Ghostland, starring Nicolas Cage.
Yep.
How did you get that role?
Geez, how honest should I be? No, there's no. Be honest with you, somebody I knew, a casting person I knew, I'd worked with before, and they thought I would be good for it. And yeah, it was probably one of the more satisfying roles I've had.
Oh, wonderful.
Not just the fact that it was a Hollywood production and getting to know Mr. Cage. It was a real role, you know. It wasn't just over there, or as we say, a spear carrier.
Yeah.
Or getting my head cut off. No, it was a real role. And I had some scenes with Nick, so.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like, working with a Hollywood actor?
Great. Great. The truth is, it happened kind of quick because there were some, meaning getting the part and production, and there were some production difficulties getting started, but I didn't have much time. So I got the script and I immediately started memorizing the lines. And my peak scene, kind of arguing with Nick's character, was supposed to be the first scene we were shooting, and I was like, oh no. And so I was working on that because it's kind of hard. You have to create the whole character and have that whole character kind of in your head from beginning, peak, and then the ending. And then to shoot the first scene is really difficult.
Yeah.
Meaning shoot the first scene being the one in the middle, being the peak.
Right.
And thankfully, I was really lucky because they said, okay, now actually we're going to do a smaller scene first, because I won't deny it. I was a little nervous. Yeah, sure.
I
Sure.
can imagine
And because of the way it was shot at this scene, it wasn't a lot of contact. I got to know him later and became friends, and it was nice. But yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. But once I got into doing it and focused and ready to go, it was great. It was like, here I am doing a scene with an Oscar-winning actor, and yeah, I enjoyed that actually. And I kind of yelled at him, and so we had a little back and forth. So yeah, it was great. It was great. It was a great experience.
What's the most interesting movie or drama that you've ever worked on?
I would say I did a historical drama called Makete Katsu, which is win by losing, and it's the story of Yoshida Shigeru, who was a prime minister right after World War II, after the war. And I played John Foster Dulles, which is Dulles Airport. That's that guy. He was quite a well-known Secretary of State for, I guess that's his most known title, but he was a diplomat. That's the word I was looking for. And it was with Ken Watanabe, who is kind of a big star, and he had decided he wanted to do this part. I think, it was a small part for him because it was a kind of a step down because it was a TV drama, not some big, giant Hollywood movie. But I think he wanted to do the part. So anyway, it was interesting from the historical standpoint, but moreover, it was interesting to work with Ken because he really knows what he's doing. And his English is quite good.
Yeah.
But, his native tongue is Japanese. So that was interesting, the dynamic. And he wasn't trying to speak like a native speaker because the guy he was playing, spoke English as a second language. But I learned so much from him just by watching the way he works around a camera. Because stage acting and film acting are very different. And just little things about getting ready when the camera, just before they say action, he would kind of give you a lot, even if he wasn't on camera. He would kind of help give you something to make your plunge, your start even better. So that was a great experience. And a funny story. The place I was working at, people would say, "Oh, you're working with Ken. Were you able to shake his hand?" And I said, "Yeah, about 55 times." Because we did about 7 or 8 scenes where we shook hands. We were shaking hands. And of course, we did 7 or 8, 9 takes of the scene. So we're like, okay. So, yeah, I shook his hand quite a few times. Yeah.
That's very lucky.
Yeah. It was good to get to know him. He's an interesting guy. Yeah.
Wow. So you've worked with 2 Hollywood actors, Nicolas Cage and Ken Watanabe. That's so fascinating. And so, because, one is American and one is Japanese, is there a difference in how they act? Or?
Well, I mean, all actors are different, because all people are different.
Right.
And that's where acting comes from, is who you are. I mean, you're playing someone else, but as you, basically. Yeah, I mean, their way of working is different. Nick is really an intense guy. He wouldn't mind me saying that. He's an intense guy. But he also is one of the sweetest and kindest guys you would ever meet. And maybe that comes through on camera, and maybe it doesn't. I kind of think it does. But yeah, and Ken is he's a private guy in some ways. But like I said, he's very, very giving, and it's just his instinct. It's just who he is. As other actors, they're basically, I'll give you an example. If it's your take, okay, it's Thomas' take when you're cutting the vegetables for, and you're remembering your daughter or your mother dying, and you start crying, and I say, "What's wrong, dear?" And maybe it's just on you, and they're just shooting you. Some actors, they'll take off, they'll go smoke a cigarette, have a cup of coffee. Whereas Ken and both Nick would be the kind of person that would say, "What's wrong, dear?" They would give you the line even though they're not on camera.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is very giving for an actor.
For sure.
They're not making it about them, they're making it about the movie and
That's
helping
right.
you create.
That's right.
What are some of the challenges you've faced as a foreign actor in the Japanese industry?
As we were mentioning before, being stereotyped, and also I think some of it is, it's true, I guess, in maybe many industries around the world, Hollywood for sure, but the visual is too important here.
Yeah.
And I know it is in Hollywood too, and in American TV, I know. I understand. It's a visual medium. I understand that. But sometimes here it just goes way, way too far. They're just, all the director is doing is looking at how you look, and that is very frustrating.
Oh,
Give you an example. There was a drama that was done on a on a network that I shall not name. And it was set in September 1945, okay? Right after the war. American occupation in Tokyo, in Japan, and GHQ in Tokyo. There was a role they were casting, and they kept looking at a couple of these models, literally models. And one guy was like a young private, very important, had quite a few lines, and it kept auditioning this one guy, and he had a very thick German accent. Okay. September 1945, okay? You're not going to have a GI who's 20, 21 years old with a thick German accent.
No.
But they cast this guy, and I was like, what are you thinking?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so that's frustrating.
Yeah.
That's frustrating. I've done things where I see the director and I can tell. It's like, okay, well, come on, let me at least try.
Right.
But
who do you hope to work with in the future?
Oh, that's a good question. I worked with Sono Shion. He's the guy who did Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Okay.
I'd love to work with him again, actually. Yeah, that was great fun working with him.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I don't have a list, to be really honest with you. I haven't thought about that other than wanting to work with him again. Yeah, there's some directors on some TV dramas that I've worked with that I'd like to work with again, which I think says a lot because it was a very enjoyable process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've had such a long career in acting in Japan, so you've worked with a lot of people.
I worked with Miyazawa Rie. She's a quite famous actress. And I had one little scene with her, but I'm very proud of that. It was called Leaders, was the name of the drama. And it was about how a fictional car company got started. It was basically Toyota, the story of Toyota. And I had a scene with her, and they had, I think, 4 cameras on us. Whoa. So we only had one take, and there was a mistake made, put it that way. So we got to do it again, which was great because I was like, okay, good. I want to try it a little different. And it was really, really fun.
Oh,
yeah.
Wonderful.
It was great. Yeah. I was very impressed with her. She's the real thing. She's a real actress. Yeah.
So Korea is doing a really good job right now in the movie industry, TV industry, and even music industry. Do you think Japan can reach the same level?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think in some ways it already has, I think. I know for a fact, I've been a little critical of productions here, but I know that there are some very, very good directors here, and they've got a very clear image of things. I think maybe the only thing that could be improved is maybe more varieties of scripts, and I think that actually is one of the reasons Korean dramas are so successful. Is they've got intriguing stories.
Right.
Because the Squid Game, I don't know if you saw that.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah. If you think about it, I mean, no offense, but the acting was, well, it was what it was. But the story is what was so engaging, and a lot of the drama and the romantic dramas and stuff.
Absolutely.
I think it's the story. I think that's where Japan could improve, because I think technically, and there are some very good actors in this country. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. There is a Japanese movie called Battle Royale. Have you seen that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of like Squid Games in a way. That was very popular at the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like older Japanese drama and cinema was better than what they're doing now, unfortunately. There is still some good stuff going on right now that is kind of unknown.
Yeah. Well, you brought up Camera o Tomerana, One Cut of the Dead. That's a good example. That was basically an indie film.
Yeah.
You know, it was, the guy got some money together and did it for Abema, I think it's called. And it exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was different.
Exactly. And the story was like, wow. Because when I auditioned for that, the director said, I was told you have to watch this movie before you come to the audition. Otherwise, there's not much point. They were exactly right. And I was at the gym, and I was like, I watched the first half, the one cut part. I was like, what is this? But I kept going, and I was like, oh, my gosh. Oh, God. And then I was sold. You know, I was engaged, and I couldn't stop watching. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for young foreign actors who want to work in Japan?
Stick with it. Be prepared. I would say that. Be prepared. A lot of the times, I work as a narrator as well, and I do voiceovers as well. And I'm shocked at how people will just show up and not be ready.
Oh.
And it's stunning sometimes. I'm like, well, and sometimes it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. It depends on what it is. But if you really want to succeed, and if you go into an audition, if they give you lines, even if they're you don't have them memorized, you should be prepared, and you should prepare it.
Yeah.
I mean, some cases, fine. You know, if you're selling a can of soup, fine. It doesn't matter. All they're doing is looking at your face. But if you're given lines to learn or something about a scene, prepare. Be prepared, you know, and it'll go a long way, because the directors, the good directors, they'll know. They'll know immediately.
Yeah.
They'll know immediately. Doesn't matter what language. And I think that probably is true in any country. In Iceland, certainly in the States, they know, sure.
So just as a last question before the flash questions round.
Sure.
So Bill Hersey is the founder of Hersey Shiga.
Right.
And for our listeners who don't know, we have a video on our YouTube channel that you can check out. But you used to know him, right?
I have an interesting story about Bill.
Oh, I want to hear this.
Yeah, I knew Bill quite well. Quite well. I knew him. I interviewed him on the radio one time, and that was a whole lot of fun. He knew everybody and had met everybody. And I had said, I saw a picture at your place and of you talking to Walter Cronkite. You're probably too young to know. He was an old newsman in the States. He was like, everybody knew this guy. Like, yeah, Walter, yeah, he was an interesting guy. So my Bill Hersey story. I went to Papua New Guinea, the country. It's above Australia, and it's quite, it's a kind of a wild and exotic place. And you can really get away from civilization, and you feel like you've been in a time machine, okay? They've got these festivals up in the hills where, this is a cliche, but, you know, someone with a bone in their nose and a mud mask. And anyway, I went to this place way, way, way away from civilization. and on the Sipalak River. I still remember the name of that. It's like their Amazon River. Way the heck away from civilization. No electricity, no phones, nothing.
Ooh.
And to set it up, I had met somebody in Port Moresby, or I got in touch with somebody on the phone. He's like, yeah, okay, I can hook you up with a family who can give you a place to stay. Because you can't really just show up.
No.
But just picture not dark, but just picture deep, distant Africa. And that's where I was. And this guy who got me connected with his family, he said, so where are you from? Because I was only by telephone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm from the U.S., but I live in Tokyo. Oh, Tokyo, really? Do you happen to know Bill Hersey?
What?
And I said, yes, I do. I actually interviewed him it had been like a year since I had interviewed him. I was like, yeah, he came here and I arranged something for him and showed him around. I mean, just imagine paddling up the Amazon and being in this very distant place. And
Wow.
just somebody happens to mention, oh, yeah, Bill Hersey. Like, oh, my God, yes.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah. It's like, is there anywhere he hasn't been, or is there anyone he doesn't know? Yeah.
That's fantastic. He's
Yeah.
an amazing man. It was an amazing
Yeah, he sure was. Funny guy.
man. Thank you for sharing that story.
Oh, sure. No, it's a good memory to relive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, when I got back to Tokyo, I made sure I called him up and said, yeah, so and so from Sipalak and Port Moresby said hello. And Bill just took it in stride. He was like, yep, I was there 8 years ago. And he just rattled off this whole story. And I was like, wow.
Just before we finish this interview,
Sure.
I have this flash questions round.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically just have to answer the question without thinking.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
It's this or that.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Tofu or meat?
Tofu.
Ghibli or Disney?
Ghibli.
Voice acting or acting on camera?
Acting on camera.
A ryokan in Kyoto or a 5-star hotel in Tokyo?
Kyoto.
Swimming in the ocean in Okinawa or lounging in an onsen in
Okinawa.
Hokkaido?
You don't even have to finish. I'm a scuba diver. Yep.
Or maybe this one is a bit mean, but
Go ahead.
Ken Watanabe or Nicolas Cage? You can
Both.
Yes.
Sincerely, both.
And this
Good
one,
question.
this one is very controversial, so be careful. Iceland or Norway?
Iceland.
Yes. Thank you. You can come back to the show.
Even though Norway always does better at the Olympics.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I do have a quick story for you.
Oh.
I was in Norway before I went to Iceland.
Yeah.
And I was trying to go to Green. Actually, it was Iceland trying to get to Greenland, and there was bad weather, so the plane turned around and came back to Reykjavik, and or wherever the airport is, it's outside, and I got to know these Norwegians
Yeah.
from Norge,
Norge?
and somehow we started talking about the Olympics because Norway always does incredibly well in the Olympics, even though it's not a very big country. And I was starting to talk to these guys. We were outside in a hot tub, and I mentioned, 1980, Eric Heidel, I think was his name. He won 5, and they finished my sentence. 5 gold medals in speed skating, yeah. And I was just amazed. Yeah, he was 1980, 5 gold medals in speed skating, yeah.
I love your accent. It's perfect.
That was one of those things, like Bill Hersey and the River Sipalak. Yeah, it's like, I was just amazed.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh,
for
no, it's
joining
been
me
a pleasure.
today. It's been so
My
much
pleasure.
fun.
My pleasure.
That concludes this episode of Eyes on Japan by Hersey Shiga. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed the show, we hope you subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platform, such as iTunes or Spotify, and remember to leave a rating and a few comments. Until next time, my name is Telma Heimisdottir.